All right, hi, this is Henk. Welcome to another edition of the Skull Sessions podcast. And today my guest is John Epple. Is that correct?
Yes. Right now, I'm juggling two different projects. I have Exodus Z #2 that I'm working on, and then I have another zombie book called Flesh Eaters that I'm working on as well. Apparently, I have a knack for messed up zombie horror. I never planned it that way, but apparently, watching all those horror movies growing up paid off.
Okay. Is it kind of like a zombie apocalypse? Is it like an outbreak? Is it like what's kind of the core tenet of the story?
Well, Exodus Z is basically we found a way to get zombies into heaven. In issue one, we told how the story got started and introduced some of the main characters. We don't have like core characters that live through the whole story because it's a zombie book. It doesn't seem appropriate. We like a lot of inappropriate humor, so that's strewn all throughout the book. And then issue one closes out with the zombies as they get to heaven, shows how it happened, what's happening, what the angels are doing to try to stop it from happening. Issue two, we amped up everything a little bit more and found a way to turn angels into zombies themselves, and shows all the shenanigans involved with that.
So if a zombie kills you in heaven, what happens to you?
Basically the same stuff. We didn't necessarily go all in depth and try to come up with some elaborate higher purpose or anything like that. We just thought it'd be funny to. When I say we, my writer is George Alvarez. He came up with the initial idea, and then he let me add my 2 cents enough that we're both co-creators at this point. And so all throughout the book, we hid Easter eggs all throughout everything to just make people go, "What in the world?" So I thought it'd be fun to hide stuff in there, and then since it is a zombie horror, I felt it appropriate to have inappropriate humor in there, just because every zombie movie I've ever watched, something messed up happens in each one. So I figured would continue the tradition a little bit.
So what's the construct of heaven? Is it like a kind of like a modern town? Is it like an old western town? What were you thinking? Like how are you playing it out?
Well, we kept it kind of non-denominational. That way, we didn't, because we figured we're going to get enough negative attention being heavenly and dealing with angels and stuff like that. So instead of picking on a specific religion, it's just a general religious individuals that are involved. So you have clouds in heaven and buildings and stuff like that, but nothing that would say it's one denomination over another.
Well, are the buildings like more like modern, like New York City or
Yeah, kind of what you
Boston?
would see here. Kind of what you would see here, maybe a little brighter, cleaner than what you would see down here. Because I'd like to think that if heaven's real, that it would look pretty nice up there. Lots of
Okay,
light everywhere, and shiny buildings, stuff like that.
clean streets, no like pooping needles in the streets.
Yeah, not like San Francisco where we're allowed to crap in the street and stuff.
and
Can't believe that's allowed.
so I guess like a number of different religions have their concept of angels. Were you kind of like when you draw them, are you kind of basing them on like the Renaissance style?
No, I was honestly thinking what would make for a cool action figure. So with there was, I want to say five or six, maybe seven angels that we were mainly dealing with, and with each one, I tried to make them look unique. But the core concept of all of them, I'm like, I would want this to be a cool action figure if it ever gets to the point where they make them.
Okay, is there one omniscient being like a sort of God figure?
Nothing that we've specified yet. I mean, there's going to be a religious deity of some sort, uh, and then we were introducing what we're going to say is the devil in the book as well in book two, but we're not going to necessarily say take like a Catholic approach or Protestant approach or anything like that.
Okay. Is the devil going to be a bad guy or just not, you don't specifically like designate him as like the villain?
He is a bad guy because he's the devil, but we're not going to necessarily say he's going to be the hero of the book either.
Okay.
I mean, I can't really give away any spoilers because we're trying to build up anticipation.
Right. Well, I'm not trying to get you to give away spoilers. It's just it's an interesting concept, and I think the more that like kind of reaches out, like the more elements it can reach out, the more it grabs people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, with everything, I tried to figure out like what would make this character stand out and what would make it interesting. So I tend to be pretty unconventional when I do things because George lets me do I won't say whatever I want, but he's pretty liberal with what I can get away with. So
Okay.
I got the devil with like the horns and facial hair and stuff like that, but we dressed him differently and but there's still elements in there where you say even without reading the book, you're going to be able to tell that it who the character is and hopefully be like, dude, that's pretty cool.
Okay. As far as your drawing and comic book style, is there an artist or a group of artists that you looked up to?
I'm a big fan of like 80s and 90s books because that's when I grew up reading comics the most. So I'm a fan of just about everybody from the 90s era comics. I like Stephen Platt has been a big influence on my work lately. Mark Silvestri, Rob Liefeld, Bart Sears, Joe Quesada, Jimmy Palmiotti, guys like that. They're all huge influences on me. I think I've mixed them up enough so that you might be able to see little bits and pieces of where other people, other artists influence the work, and hopefully still make it my own as well. So I don't want to be anyone's. I don't want to be anyone's copycat.
Right. Well, I'm not saying that you're exactly the same. I'm just like, considering that, like if you throw out a big name, people are like, oh, I know what that looks like. If you say, hey, I'm like a rising contributor, but I wouldn't say I'm the same as this, but if you like this, you like my stuff.
I
So
would say
I'm
if you like Kyle Holtz, his work, and Kelly Jones, they're also big influences. Uh,
what happened to Kelly Jones?
I don't know, he usually keeps his head down a lot. He's busy doing Batman and Swamp Thing and a bunch of cool stuff. But I like his
I
the way he
remember he broke
uses.
out and he was like the big new hot thing. It's kind of like had that kind of dark gothic tint to him, and
Mhm.
then it seems like he just kind of disappeared.
Well, I see him. I follow him on social media, so I'll see him posting stuff. But it's always about his work. I've never seen him talking trash about anybody, which is
Right.
one of the things I respect about him and Kyle Holtz. They're I've met Kyle, so he's a great guy, and but he doesn't, as far as I know, doesn't talk trash about anybody. When he posts, it's something that his music that he's into or his artwork, and that's it. I have chatted with him here and there, and I've gotten advice and stuff, but I've never heard him either one of them say a bad thing about anybody.
No, well, I know that a lot of artists that kind of got like they're more mainstream artists and kind of like got that rock star attitude. But most of the
Yeah.
people that I really look up to, like I love Mike Mignola's art stuff. I like
Mm-hmm.
Mike Luda's stuff. There's a whole bunch of people that I'm like, yeah, they were amazing. Al Williams and like I could just go on forever. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying none of them talk shit about the other person.
Well, yeah, I try to stay away from people that are more concerned with drama than putting their books out. Because the main reason I'm on social media is for comics,
Right.
to get my comics out to other people or to see what other see what people I look up to are doing. because I'd like to think that I've gotten to a point with my work that their colleagues, to a point, and not that I've accomplished nearly the same thing as they have, but the fact that we both draw comic books, I get a fanboy when I interact with someone that I look up to, and it's like, oh my god! I mean, this guy does the same thing that I do, and now we could possibly be at the same con together and sitting next to each other. Now, granted, I'm a nobody, but I still think the idea of that is amazing.
It seems like I mean there's a lot of stuff this goes for, but it seems like in comics like stuff used to be a little bit more diverse. Like you might have a Barry Windsor Smith, and then you have a
Uh-huh.
Kaluta, and then you have a John Tolman, and then you'd have, I don't know, you'd have somebody else like P. Craig Russell, and like they all have different styles, but like nobody was like, oh, this is the way you do comics. You're just like, oh yeah, maybe I'll check it out.
Mm-hmm.
There people that are kind of like off the rails at the time, like Bill Sikoish, and then now everybody's like, oh yeah, he was a genius. But like I remember when the set was coming out, and there were a lot of haters, but
Oh
it
yeah,
seems like a lot of people were like practicing all different things, and it seems like you have a little bit less of that now. Do you see that?
yeah. To me, a lot of times, like when I go to a comic shop, I don't have a lot of time to read comics anymore because I'm so busy making them. But when I do have the time and I go to a comic shop, I'm almost exclusively indie books now and back issues
Okay.
because to me, a lot of the mainstream stuff now, the house styles that they chose to me look bland. It's not as exciting. Now, if someone listening to this enjoys modern comics, by all means, enjoy it as much as you like. But I miss the days like when I would go look for the artists that I mentioned earlier. I would get excited about whatever new book they had just because one of those artists I mentioned earlier did a new book. I didn't care if it was Marvel, DC, Valiant, Image, one of the underground comics that were popular when we were kids. A lot of the mainstream stuff now just doesn't do it for me.
Right. Well,
So
I know a lot of people that are authors that also own comic book shops, and they tell me that like Marvel and DC are like maybe 3 to 4% of their sales. Like it's all indie comics.
I can see that. I mean, I've heard Jimmy Palmiotti because I live in Florida. I believe that Jimmy Palmiotti has a shop in Clearwater, Florida. I've never seen him there, but I've heard that he has one. So I thought that was pretty cool that a comic book professional has their own shop as well. Uh, but I've got ones local to me that I go to regularly, and I've gotten to a point where some of them recognize me. The owners will come in and say hi. They'll let me work on my comics in their shop and stuff like that. I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah, where do you live? You live in Florida? Is that what you
Yeah,
said? We're in Florida.
I live in the Orlando area.
Okay. I lived in Gainesville for a while, and I remember at the time I'd be a comic artist, and there were like a ton of comic cards. They worked at like bookstores or comic shops. Like I'm old, so comic shops like just selling comics like direct lines was brand new. So there were very few, and they were in college towns. And I remember
Yeah.
that's when there was a debut of stuff like Phallus. I remember the first Watchmen came out, Dark Knight came
Mhm.
out. They didn't even think they'd sell, and then they just took off.
Well, a lot of the shops around here have other interests as well, D&D, board games, or I can't remember what all else. I know one of the shops I go to is Blackbird Comics, and they have I want to say they have a section for board games. They have a coffee shop in the shop as well with tables that you can go sit down, and it's an actual cafe. They serve food as well. They have comic books, all kinds. They probably got a great selection of modern comics, old comics, and they can order just about anything I would want. I like that one the best because they tend to be it's a more relaxing atmosphere. The owners there know me by name, so whenever I come in, they always make it a point to come by and say hi. So
What do they
I
have on the shelves as opposed to like what people need special order?
anything I've ever wanted, they're like, if they didn't have it on hand, they were always eager to get it for me. So that's never been a problem for me. They have their section for the modern comics that are coming out right now, and then they have of course the back issues, like the dollar boxes and stuff like that. So they've got a nice variety of stuff,
I
graphic
remember
novels.
after the indie boom when everybody had those giant comic boxes full of like black and white comics they couldn't get rid of.
Well, they have some of those as well, and I know there's guys like me to go in just for that stuff, and then there's at Blackbird, there's a nice crowd variety of people that go in. They have the action figures, the anime statues. There's an indie section. They've had my books on. Uh, they have at one point they had GI Joes in there. They have the
The
statues
G.I. Joe
of
comic or the G.I. Joes themselves, like the action
both.
figures? Both?
Yeah, I mean, and they've even got a few art supplies in there as well for the local artists or the
Oh,
college
wow.
because Orlando is a big, not big college town, but there's some fairly reputable art colleges around Orlando, and some of the people they have employees coming from those colleges to come hang out at the shop. So the students come there as well. They have like sketchbooks, pencils, and pens, and inks, and stuff like that you can buy as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So, all right, getting back to your comic project right now. So, what do you have out, and where can people see it?
I sent you links for there's a website you can buy issue one. If you go to Kickstarter and look under Exodus Z, I believe the campaign is still open for issue one and two, so that you can get caught up if you want and buy both issues. But other than that, it's exodusz.com, I believe it is, that we can order issue one. If you want to request commissions, we can go through that as well, or contact me through Facebook. That's usually
Okay.
probably the easiest way.
And what you have one paperback out now? Do you have plans later on to like compile like a graphic novel or an omnibus or something like that?
Well, right now, Exodus Z is going to be at least three issues, and then we're going to play it by ear from there to see what kind of attention we get from fans on how long we stretch the story out. Because we have issue one that I mentioned. We have George put out a book last year called Phantasmagoria, which was a horror anthology that we have a story for Exodus Z in there, a little 6-page story to help get fans by between issues one and two. It's kind of a filler story. And then I'm about half done. Issue two is drawn right now. Right now, I'm inking pages, so it'll be done and sent to the colorist within the next month or so.
Okay. And do you raise the funds via Kickstarter for every new issue?
Yeah, George and I have had 4 campaigns right now. We've done issue one on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, Phantasmagoria, and issue two were on Kickstarter, I believe.
Okay, do you have any little like I talked to Chrissy Grant. I actually featured her on the podcast a few times, but every time she puts out an issue, she runs a Kickstarter campaign, and she has like different little trinkets you can get, like stuffed animals or magnets or anything like that. Do you have anything that you offer?
Yeah, we have stickers, and then there's like posters, 11 by 17 posters we can get. Stickers. I want to say t-shirts, coffee mugs, stuff like that. I might have a t-shirt in my filing cabinet behind me, but we do
Okay,
have some stuff.
do you have like they could get like a signed copy of the comic too?
Yes, especially if they come in person and see they see me at a local shop or at a con.
Do
Uh,
you have a website they can look up or like
yeah, that's it's in those links I sent you.
okay?
It'll I believe it's comicsunknown.com. I believe it is.
Okay. And do you sell like any original art? Do
I
you
do.
do you post it up on the website like this is what I have available?
Uh, George is one running the site. I do have a few examples right now of what's up there, but since we're so new, people we can only go to local shows right now. If somebody's at a show and they want to buy a page, then by all means, go ahead. But usually, if you want to reach me directly, either through there's a link that I sent you to Comics Unknown or through social media, and say, "Hey, can you draw me a picture of Captain America or whatever?" And then I've got different size things that I've drawn on, different size Bristol boards, index cards, little collector cards. I want to say like 9 by 12 board of random characters that I'll draw so I have something to show on hand. Because not everybody has like $200 to buy a comic book page from somebody that they don't know yet. So until then, I I have the other stuff that I draw to show that I can do more than just one thing.
Okay. Do you work on prior projects? This is your first comic.
No, I have them up on the wall, but I have like 9 books that I've been a part of. It's just
Okay.
Exodus Z was the first full book that I've done. Everything else was like short stories or pinups and stuff.
Okay. Are those available? At least are the reference on your website?
I know if you look up Mississippi Zombie 2, you should be able to find it on Amazon. I found it there in the past, and then most everything else was uh, crowdfunded. It's been most of my work. I have one. My first pinup that I ever got published was in a swimsuit issue by Antarctic Press, but I've never seen that anywhere, so I don't really recommend it.
And you're not even sure if it came out because you never
No,
saw
no,
it?
it's come out, but I had to ask specifically for it
Right.
because I got a copy of it myself to put on my wall. But I know that my first story was in Mississippi Zombie 2 that you should be able to find on Amazon. It's been a while since I've looked, but I found it there myself.
Okay. All right. So if people want to check out what you got on, is probably your website is the best place to go to.
Yep, that or if you want to reach out to me directly, social media.
Okay.
Because I've got Instagram, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, and Threads, I think it is.
Okay.
I I should have sent you the links for all of them, I believe.
I believe you did. I'll put them all up on YouTube. Not everyone in Buzzsprout too, but like when it's audio, people might not see it as much. But I'll
Yeah.
definitely put them all up. All right, so let me ask you a couple more questions before we end this. One, people hate to do this, but if you had to compare your stuff to somebody else, like if you had to say, "Hey, if you really like I don't know, the Walter Simonson run of Thor or something, then you might be into my stuff."
I really don't know because I've gotten so many different things of my style from so many different people. I don't know if I could say, oh yeah, my work looks like this guy or like this guy. I do try to make it dynamic and interesting. Uh, Horror has been my main focus, so I've got that. If you like shaded, I try to find a balance between like shading and like intricate line work. So people like maybe Kyle Holtz would be a close resemblance, I think, to my work because I think he's a more detailed version of like Kelly Jones, that we mentioned earlier, or Bernie Wrightson. He's a big influence as well. I met him and
I think
Kyle.
Bernie influenced everybody.
Oh yeah, I met him and Kyle at Tampa Bay Comic Con, different ones, but I met both of them at Tampa Bay Comic Con, and they both had amazing influences on me and my work.
I met Bernie a while ago at a horror convention, Monster Mania, and it was really impressive because I've always looked up to Bernie. He's a super nice guy, but it's like he was talking about the famous Frankenstein pages he did.
Yeah,
He's like, after I did those, I knew that was the best I was ever gonna do, so I just gave up for a while.
those were absolutely amazing too, from what I've
They
seen.
were they blew everyone's mind, and like even Bernie at his worst is still better than the vast majority of artists out there.
Yeah,
So like when he did Batman the Cult, like it
yep.
wasn't his Frankenstein stuff, but it was still like way better than most of the stuff out there.
I'm sure he
But
didn't. DC didn't give him the same amount of time to do that either.
well, they probably did, but I also like he used to like very intricately do everything and just started using bigger markers and like he said that he said he just started just like well I got kids I got to pay for the college so I went back to drawing like it seemed like such a downer to me because I'm like he's such a legendary guy
Yeah. Well,
but
I've got his most of his Swamp Thing run that I've had since probably the mid '90s. I'll
right
never get rid of those books, not willingly.
they were awesome the guy that the art team that I like the absolute best was the Steve Bissett John Tolman run
I've seen some
written
of it.
by
Yeah.
Alan Moore and but I definitely I love Bernie stuff. He's amazing.
Oh yeah. For me, Swamp Thing has always been a difficult character to draw, just because you've got to get the right amount of, got to get his proportions right, because he's human, but he's not he doesn't look like you and I. So you have to get
Right.
his proportions right, and then you got to get shading in there, and then all the details from the vegetation, and so and I love the character, but he's
Well,
always been.
John and Steve do something smart. They go, "Hey, it's basically like swamp Louisiana base." So they took a vacation down there and took a whole bunch of reference photos.
Oh yeah, well that's what I do. I've drawn. I have a Man Thing that Marvel did, because I read the Kyle Holtz book about Man Thing, and I'm like, man,
Okay.
I want to see what it'd be like if I drew him. So I've got one of those that I've got up on my desk over here that I haven't finished yet, but because like Swamp Thing, you got to get his proportions right, and then you got to get the details right and all that. But
And I feel Man Thing is an underused character. You
yeah,
know.
I think so. But if you ever get a chance to read Kyle's version of Man Thing, I think it's awesome. That's what the character should look like.
Okay. And what is it? It's called what?
It's Man Thing, but it's Kyle Holtz drew it. I can't remember the
Okay.
writer's name right now,
Was
but
that fairly recent?
no, it's been there. There was a movie that came out of Man Thing, so I would say the book is probably at least 15 years old.
Okay.
But I think it's worth looking into, because I thought it was a great looking book just
I'll
because he
definitely
drew it.
check it out. Yeah.
I think I have it. To give you an idea,
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, I'll look it up and I'll order copies, definitely.
you might be able to find it on Amazon. At this point, when I like the artist that I mentioned earlier,
Hmm.
if I find one that I like, I like to find their older work as well. That way, I can see how their style evolved.
Right.
And
It's
all those,
weird. It's like I'll look at like Mike Mignola, who I'm a big fan of. He does Hellboy, and
I
like
like his
his
X
early
Force stuff.
style was a lot different than it is now.
Oh yeah.
And same with Barry Winston Smith. I'm a big fan of his stuff, but the early stuff in Conan is way different than what it is now.
Mm-hmm. Now, every once in a while, I'll come across somebody where it's like everything they do, I'm like, I have to have it. But
Right.
other artists, there's like I'll like certain phases of the work,
Right.
like Jay Lee. He's an amazing artist, but I prefer his older work over his current style.
Okay.
There's
I mean,
nothing wrong
I
with.
like everything I've seen from Jay Lee. I like, but
Yeah,
like I'm bigger into like more the like kind of like not superhero stuff. You know, that,
yeah.
so like Barry Winston Smith, his Machine Man run and stuff.
That
I
was
thought that was
awesome.
awesome.
I didn't see all of it. I've seen some of it, and I was a
Weapon X. Did you read
big
Weapon
fan of his
X?
Weapon X work. I wasn't too crazy about the Wildstorm stuff that he did,
I didn't see that. Yeah.
but the Weapon X, I thought some of his best work.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. All right. So let's. I don't want to keep you here all day. We'll get it short. But do you have anything else you want to throw out, like things people should check out?
I would say I'd appreciate if you keep track of my social media because I try to post regularly on what I'm doing. That way you can see what my latest pages are or what my latest project is. I'll share commissions after the commissioner has seen it. Once they say it's okay, then I share it. That way people can be like, "Oh man, he did Cyberfrog," or "Oh man, he did Wolverine," or whoever. Because sometimes people don't know who you are, they don't care about the projects you did until you draw the character that they know.
Right.
So for me, like some of the pros that I know, they're not a, they don't like fan art. They discourage it. I don't have a problem with it. If someone wants me to draw Wolverine, I'll do it. I don't have a problem with it because I am unknown. I'm not going to have people yet that are that eager to be like, oh man, I got to have every comic book he's ever drawn.
Right.
So I use fan art as a way to build interest in what I can do.
Right. Well, I think it's great when like people with their own vision draw stuff like I'll see like the Kelly Jones version of a character that
Yeah.
John Byrne did. You know, it's like Kelly Jones version is gonna look way different than John Byrne.
Oh yeah. I recently saw the that X-Men book that he's been doing on his own, the Elsewin, I think it was.
Okay.
Amazing work, I think. I mean, if you're a fan of John Byrne's work, if you can find that online, even just Googling it, you'll see some of the pages. I think it's
Yeah,
amazing work.
I'm not a big fan. I think he does like very nice, clean stuff. It's just like,
Yeah.
I like stuff that's like to me it's a little bit more edgy.
Yeah.
Like do you ever see like the Max?
Oh yeah. Well, see, that's what I love about comic books. Just because we may not necessarily like the same ones, comic books, there's something out there for just about everybody.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about it. It's not just, oh, hey, this is all you
But
get. Because
I can even enjoy reading an Archie comic. It's not my thing, but it's like,
yeah.
you know,
Well,
definitely blows away like a like Maxim magazine or something.
for me, comic books have always been a visual medium. So I was always there for the artwork. Now, if the writing turns out to be just as good as the artwork, great. Then that's kind of icing on the cake for me. But
It
at the
seems
same
like that
time,
kind of hit like in the 1980s with like the Alan Moore and Frank Miller and Grant
I think
Morrison and
so.
stuff.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I have some comic books older than me, but for me, it's always been, like I said, a visual medium. If the artwork sucks, I don't care if it's the latest issue of X-Men or whatever. I'm not going to buy the book if I don't like how it looks.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes some sense. All right, man. So I got another podcast, so we got to cut it. But let me let me and everyone else know if you got anything else going on.
Outside of the Exodus Z and Flesh Eaters that I told you about, that's about all that's on my plate at the moment because I'm just inking pages like a madman. If I'm not eating, then I'm usually sitting at my desk and
Yeah,
trying
I
to
think
knock
people
these
have
pages
no
out.
idea how long it takes. It actually takes a long time.
What with no interruptions, I can knock a page out in like a day,
Okay.
but I have kids, so interruptions are just a part of life.
I couldn't do a page in a day. But so good on you, man.
Yep.
All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
And next time you got a project, if you want to promote something, let me know.
Yep. Thanks, man.